Unsyndicated presents Shep and Sean, featuring Matt Shepard and Sean Baligian.
All right, so much to get to. We wanted to do this before 8 o'clock because I think, like many of you, Shep, the Vikings used to just be a team to me. Like I didn't have a feeling one way or another. I really, truly did.
Your whole life, or just recently?
Swear to God, my whole life. They were just like, of all the teams in the division, okay, because you and I grew up with the Central, right?
Mhm.
I didn't like the Packers. I've said it 100 times. I hated the Bears. Hated the Bears. Okay, that was my number one. Tampa was just there. The Vikings were kind of just there. Honest to God, I didn't feel one way or the other. And I know some Viking fans, so I'm just telling you guys right now, you're going to get mad at me. Like, I can't stand the Vikings. I have a very strong disdain for the Vikings out of
When
nowhere.
did that turn? When did it turn for you?
This year with the mouth. The mouth got me. Like, literally, the mouth. Viking fans were really chirpy this year.
Can I play devil's advocate?
Of course you can.
Okay. You don't think the Lions are chirping at all?
1,000%.
You don't think Lions players have been chirping?
But Shep, you and I come from the generation that if I go into your house and I whoop your ass, I shut up. Yeah. I just keep my mouth shut. Like, at that point, I go, you got me for now. But I'm going to give you payback. When I go to your house, I'm going to return the favor. Like, I don't know. That's just me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, up until that point, that was great. But after that, what was it, October 18th or 19th, whatever the hell date it was, after that, all the chirping really got to me. I was just sitting there going, you guys, you lost at home, like, to the Lions. You were looking up at the Lions pretty much the rest of the season. You had the division for a 27-hour span, only because the Lions didn't play until Monday. What's up with all the chirping? And then obviously we saw what we saw in week 17. So
yeah, I'll be honest with you. When I was a kid, I played Little League football, NFWB, North Farmington West Bloomfield, and we were the Vikings.
Mm-hmm.
And they used to be, when we were kids, we always had to have a second favorite team. It made no sense for me to like the Vikings, but I loved Fran Tarkenton. I loved Chuck Foreman. I loved Matt Blair. I loved, so many different, Stu Voigt. I could name every single Viking. Alan Page, Jim Marshall, Gary Larson, Carl Eller, loved them, right? Jeff Seaman in the middle, all those guys. I think it turned for me when Tommy Kramer took over.
Number 9.
Rice.
Number 9, yeah.
Number 9. With the eye black, he looked the part. He looked cool, but he didn't do squat. And specifically, it was the mid-'70s when they lost to Dallas. And Drew Pearson beat Nate Wright. And I was like, Nate Wright, are you kidding me? You can't come. How about making a play on the ball? All these different things. I'll be honest with you. There are guys and there are teams where I'm sure you and I have admired. Like, you love the Habs. You've always loved the Habs. But my guess is you'd root for the Red Wings over the Habs if they played. That is oftentimes the case here. I don't know if there's a football team that I look at and I'm like, man, I really like that team. I admire some teams. I admire what Kansas City's done and what San Francisco's done in the past and what Indy and New England and the dynasties. But there's not another team I look at. I don't mind watching them, but I can't say that I'm necessarily rooting for them. Does that make sense?
No, totally. For me, I've always been. You're either I hate you or mad. Like, that's always kind of been. It's funny. I really liked, and I can hear Howard Cosell saying it, Francis Tarkington. Always called him Francis Tarkington, right? Yeah. And he was fun to watch because he just ran around like a chicken with his head cut off. Like, and he's one of those guys in my mind, Shep. I think a generation forgot. Like, seriously, our generation, he was a damn good quarterback.
Really good.
You'll never hear anybody mention Fran Tarkington before. But no, I've always been you're just there. Like you're just such a, like the Jacksonville Jags. what on earth would I possibly have against the Jags?
Right. No,
Just-
100%.
They're just the Jags. They're just a nothing, and things. And I kind of always looked at Minnesota like that. But Mouth got him in trouble this year. At least me. Mouth got him in trouble.
Yeah, I think so. I guess let's play devil's advocate again. When the Lions got beat up in Philadelphia, our friend Lomas had a couple of conversations, right? Mouth got Detroit in trouble.
Yep.
Back then, right?
Yep.
It hasn't happened very often because having this good. It's funny. My son's girlfriend her family's from Minnesota, and one of her brothers said to my son Scott not too long ago, nobody really likes the Lions. They're not really fun. And my son, he completely lost it. It's like, what are you talking about? They travel better than anybody, just about anybody. The emotions sometimes get in the way, even though Green Bay and Dallas travel pretty well. But he says, they travel better than anybody. They're a blast to watch. And you never know what they're going to expect, what people are, fans can expect. And he said, it's new blood. I think a ton of people love this team. And I think nationwide, a lot of people, I don't know if they're rooting for them, but they want to watch them, right?
Yeah. You know what I think is, I think people like a team when they're cute, like pinch your cheek cute. I think when you start to become dangerous and God forbid you're in a position to win a Super Bowl, which I really truly believe the Lions are in a position to do.
No
I think it flips. I really do. And the Buffalo Bills have always been a team like that. Even when it was all cute in the late 80s and into the early 90s, but then when people thought that they might actually beat the Giants, I remember this pushback against, because Shep, there's another team. Sorry to be flipping all around. It was hard not to like those Bills teams. It really was. There were a bunch of characters on their teams, and it would, Jim Kelly was just so darn tough and everything. But it was like one of those things. It was just like, okay, after they lost that first one, you're like, maybe they'll get another. Then when they got hammered by the Redskins, it kind of hit you. Okay, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. So
I'm with you on that. I would say, I think, and I've said this for a long time, I think people love dynasties as long as they're their own.
Yep.
We loved when the Pistons made those runs twice, right? The late 80s into the early 90s, and then in the early 2000s. We thought that was awesome. Eventually, people got tired of it. Red Wings with their runs, 4 cups in 11 years. People loved that in Detroit, but I'm sure there's a lot of people outside Detroit got a little tired of it. Okay. I think that's how it works. Ask people outside of Kansas City, ask people if they like the Chiefs. Most people are saying, hell no, I'm so sick and tired of the Chiefs, right? So if it's your dynasty, it's awesome. If it's somebody else, how many times do you root for the Giants? Maybe twice. It was against New England both times in the Super Bowl, right? That's how it works, I think, with sports for the most part.
No, I think you're right. Those chirpy Viking fans are going to be so mad when the Lions have a Super Bowl win before they do. Mark, I'm with you. Great stuff today, Sean. Thank you. Good evening, boys. That comes from our buddy Tom. How do we shut down the Commanders? Shep, you know what? I think it's actually pretty easy. And I think now easy, take it in its proper context. Okay. The Commanders are here for a reason. The Commanders don't stop the run well. The Lions are getting Montgomery back. You have the biggest, baddest offensive line in the league. You have Gibbs. You have Montgomery. Shep, I think Vegas is playing with people. I really do. The over-under was sky high. You know me, I don't bet. I don't think you do either. I really think this might be more of an old school game than anybody gives it credit for. They don't stop the run. We run well with an offensive line. Impose your will on the Commanders. How's that?
Yeah, that's pretty good. I think, the Commanders, I want to give credit to them. They rank 4th in the league in rushing. Mm-hmm. They rank 5th in points per game. One could argue that when you have to try and stop a mobile quarterback like Jaden Daniels, who was 2nd among quarterbacks in rushing yards to Lamar Jackson, still threw the 10th most touchdowns in football, it can cause some problems. See Josh Allen. My argument to that has been Kyler Murray, Geno Smith, right? Other mobile quarterbacks, Caleb Williams, for example. There's been a few out there that Detroit has played and handled. My concern is Detroit, in order for them to get to Sam Darnold 2 weeks ago, they needed to blitz. And they
Mm-hmm.
blitzed reportedly 56% of the time.
Mm.
And it caused problems for him. Jaden Daniels is not Sam Darnold. Jaden Daniels actually has the third best quarterback rating against the blitz in football. And that should be of concern. With all that said, super confident Detroit. Aaron Glenn's going to figure it out. Somebody, if they can shut down Justin Jefferson, I think they can do it to Terry McLaurin. I think Washington's going to be able to move the football. I don't think they'll be able to score enough points. I'm comfortably very happy that Detroit will advance.
Shep, I use the term in hockey. I love to use this all the time. I like my chances of winning if I'm holding the puck and you aren't.
Yeah.
Okay. When the Red Wings were really flying on all cylinders in my mind, it was the puck possession. We're going to hold the puck. We're going to play keep away from you. And a lot of times it was doing a whole lot of nothing. But I can guarantee you, if I hold the puck, chances are really high you're not going to score. They're really, really high. And so that's the way that I look at it. Seriously, Shep, I look at this game as I think Jaden Daniels is going to be able to get his. I do. I just think when you wear down a defense like that, when you keep punching a defense that already knows it can't stop the run real well, and you're taking on a team that is one thing that they do well, I just don't see the fireworks that Vegas is predicting in this one. I really don't.
Maybe if it's Detroit, it's from a Detroit standpoint. I could see it scoring a lot of points. Yeah, I definitely get that. I think it's fair to be slightly concerned because Jaden Daniels throws pretty damn well on the run. He seems to be very calm and cool, doesn't get rattled too easily. So I think there's something to be said for that. Yeah, I'll give them a ton of credit. I just think Detroit's a better football team. I have looked at, and I've been wrong about one game. I've looked at all these playoff games, and I've said, who do I think is the better team? I know we like to focus on the quarterback, but I look at the better overall team. Like, would I want Bobby Wagner as my middle linebacker? You damn right I would. But I'm talking about the team in general. I think Detroit's just the better team. And I think sometimes it comes down to being as simple as that.
I'm not going to argue that. I'm a firm believer in that, really and truly, and unless it's the Chargers, because there's something wrong with the Chargers. There is. There's something wrong.
I got wrong.
Yeah. There's something wrong with that franchise. I will say it until my dying breath. We'll get to that in a second. Let me get some. Let me get some comments. Alan said Washington fans were chanting, "We want Detroit." That's a fan base's famous last words. I remember Miami, Indiana, Dallas fans were chanting, "We want Boston" a few months ago. Tom said people said the same thing with the New England when then starting all those Super Bowls. Tom, that is a perfect example because that first Super Bowl, Shep, remember, making the decision to be announced as a team, the New England Patriots, and everybody's like, wow, isn't that cool? Instead of all the guys coming out and doing this and everything. And the hatred for them went, real quick and fast. Alan said, I'm not saying that Anzalone is Ray Lewis, but he was missing against Buffalo, and it really showed. Ty Johnson had over 100 receiving yards. They exploited our weaknesses at linebacker big time. Anzalone won't let Daniels run all over us either. The Anzalone effect was in full effect against Minnesota. It really, you saw how much of a difference a guy like that makes on a team.
Yeah, really, really impressive. I mean, you and I both said, thought he was just a guy when he came here. He's been a lot better than I ever expected. I think he complements. There's no question he complements Jack Campbell so well.
Yeah, I
think it's a great 1-2 punch. I feel much better with him in there. What a warrior to battle through the injury that he's done. If you think about it, Sean, and you've got those two safeties, you got those two middle linebackers, those two linebackers. If you had any semblance of what would be your starting players, just give me one or two. Think of how much more dominant this defense would be, and how much more confident people would be in them. I am getting a little tired of the mantra, and this happens because of 24-hour sports, news, or TV and radio. A little tired of the mantra that Detroit is so beat up defensively that they're not going to be able to do anything. At some point, when are you going to let go of that?
Yeah.
Because a lot of people brought it up before the game against Minnesota. And look, it was fair. You and I talked about it. It's fair when you're giving up 32.5 points per game in the previous 4 games. You stopped one of the best offenses in football. You shut down arguably the best wide receiver, or Jamar Chase, in football. And you confused the hell out of one of the best play callers in football with Kevin O'Connell. Why is it, let's revert back to what the pre-Minnesota game narrative is, and we're going to almost ignore what they did against the Vikings? I'm hoping Detroit gets the same sense of that and is ready to kick some serious ass.
Well, Sam Bradford's awful, too. Let's be honest. Darnold, Bradford.
Same thing.
Same damn thing. Listen, if you're ready to charge, if you're ready to take charge of your financial future, look no further than the Wealth Advantage Group, located in historic downtown Northville and owned by those two guys with over 20 years of industry experience. What better way to celebrate the new year than getting some financial freedom? And these guys understand your financial goals are as unique as you are. That's why they offer personalized expert guidance to help you navigate the complexities of financial planning. Now, whether you're saving for retirement, getting ready to sell your company, already in retirement, they can help guide you through every step of your financial journey. They work with clients throughout all stages of life. They have clients in over 20 different states. Look, the investment world is a complex one. So if you're ready to start taking your finances more seriously, it might be time to work with the experts. Reach out to the Wealth Advantage Group at 248-773-8574 or check out their website at www.thewealthadv.com. Shep, I'm going to tell you about one of those teams when I was a kid that for some reason, it's not like I ran out and got a jersey, okay? I liked the Air Coryell Chargers.
Yeah, me too.
Dan Fouts was one of those guys. He was just underrated. He looked like my uncle, so that was an added bonus. You know, kid logic. Kid logic. Oh, my Uncle Mike's out there. No, it was Dan Fouts. No, that's my Uncle Mike. I know my own uncle. So kid logic. Chuck Muncie, Joyner.
Jefferson Joyner.
Yeah. Right. Wes Chandler. That was a fun team to watch.
It was.
And I remember the AFC Championship in 1982, January of 82. For those of you that don't know, the Super Bowl 16 was going to be in Detroit. I was so thoroughly convinced that the San Diego Chargers were going to be there because, here's the thing, they were a better team than the Cincinnati Bengals. And then they went to Riverfront Stadium, and it was about 79 degrees below zero with a 520 wind chill factor. Yep. There was no way in hell a team from Southern California was going to win in those conditions, okay? Right. And Shep, honestly, in my whole life, mm-hmm. there's always something that undoes the Chargers. There was that period where they had that, they had LaDainian Tomlinson, and they had Phillip Rivers, and they had Antonio Gates, and they would have these magnificent regular seasons and mm-hmm. fall flat on their face. And there's always something with a couple of years ago. Remember they were up by like 24 on the Jaguars and Trevor Lawrence and blew that game. There's something accursed with that franchise, and Jim Harbaugh better use every bit of mojo magic he has to exercise some of those demons, because Shep, really, it's almost like they hear everybody talking about it and then go out and play like it. It is unbelievable to watch.
Yeah, they were so much fun to watch from an offensive standpoint, and I remember thinking, how come people don't give Fred Dean much credit, or Louis Kelcher, if you remember Louis Kelcher, big number. Yeah. 74 in the middle.
Yes.
Guys like that. Ralph Benershka, who was their kicker, I believe, at the time. And you're like, that dude looks like he should be a patient in a hospital, but yet he somehow finds a way to kick the ball. Maybe the best teams don't always win, because I felt the same way against the Earl Campbell-led Houston Oilers. Love You Blue, with Dan Pastorini and Mike Renfro and guys like that. And I thought for sure that those guys would, Elvin Bethea and Curly Culp, those guys would knock off the Steelers. But when you had to go to Pittsburgh and you didn't know how you would handle a parka over your shoulders in between plays, it just doesn't work that way, right? And I think that was the era, perhaps, Sean, that really we felt like dome teams and warm weather teams could not perform outdoors or in the cold.
Truth.
I don't know if that's the exact turning point, But from what I can remember, those teams kind of reinforced people's beliefs or wonderment on whether or not they could actually do it. And then that stigma stayed with so many teams moving forward. I don't know if it was, maybe it was the Ice Bowl. Maybe it was Dallas against Green Bay. They just didn't feel like that. But that came down to the final play, right? You and I were talking about different stuff where these teams aren't, they look like they're totally different teams when they go outdoors and do that kind of stuff.
Yep. No doubt about it. By the way, Jerry said the Buffalo game scared fans. Last year's Baltimore game did too. That's the basis for the defense negativity. I think being banged up, I'm going to tell you point blank. I openly admit this, okay? I have no problem admitting this if you guys all want to laugh at me. Mm-hmm. It wasn't so much the Baltimore game last year. It was the relative ease that Jordan Love had on Thanksgiving that made me go, I overrated this team. And Shep, I openly admit it. I call myself out. I was like, they're going to make the playoffs. I don't know how far they're going to go. Yippee yay. Oh my gosh, we're back to the glorious Caldwell era. And because two things. Number one, the relative ease. And Shep, I was terrified that, gosh damn it, Favre beget Rodgers, Rodgers beget Love. And I'm going to say this to you again. I've watched that guy a lot this year. Shep, he ain't got it. And I will stand on that. He had
Jordan Love?
Yeah.
You say Jordan Love? Yeah.
No, he ain't got it, man. He had that nice little span last year, late in the year. I give him his flowers for that. But I always caution people, don't use the small, the exception, and make it speak for the rule. He is not him, man. Seriously. That guy's got some issues.
Yeah, Sean, 3 games. He's won 3 games more than he's lost in his career. So I've asked people, and I asked this morning, what is it about him that makes you say, I'm scared, he's the new Messiah, he belongs in the top 10, he's in the same conversation with some of these other guys? I didn't understand that. I really didn't. I didn't get it. That was concerning. For me, if it's a trend, multiple games, 3 games in 4, then it's concerning to me. I think you're similar in this regard. You don't think your team's running the table. All right. So there's going to be a hiccup or 2 or 3 throughout the season. Some of the best teams in football, that's what happens. Like you just brought up Baltimore, right? I mean, Baltimore's lost how many times this year? 4 times? Mm-hmm. 5 times this year? There was a point when Pittsburgh was 10-3, Sean. You trust their coach, Mike Tomlin? I would guess so. He's won a Super Bowl. You trust their quarterback? I would guess so. He's won a Super Bowl and had a kind of a rejuvenation type season. And yet they lost their last 5 games. And now they have lost a one and done scenario in the postseason for 6 consecutive years. And during that stretch, 3 times they have lost by 14 points or more. I don't think they beat a team with a winning record this year, maybe 1 all season long. So I think this happens to a lot of teams. It obviously didn't happen this year for the Lions, but what's happened in sports is because we talk about it so much is that we don't think any team is infallible. So we got to find the nook and cranny to find out why they're not as good as we think they truly are.
Yeah.
So you got to find the negativity. It's hard to find it with the Lions. So what do? We reach back and we go, oh, that Buffalo game scared fans, just like Baltimore a year ago. Detroit recovered from the game against Baltimore. Detroit's recovered since the game against Buffalo. I think they're going to be okay. I really do. I think they're going to be all right.
Shep, do you know what I always remind people? The Chiefs last year were bungling, as we've seen them do so many times.
Great example.
They lost to Aiden O'Connell and the Raiders.
Great example.
Not Kenny Stabler. Not Jim Plunkett. Okay. It was Aiden freaking O'Connell, man. Like, come on, I mean, that is like, seriously, that's the National Football League today. It is. It just, I remember talking to a mutual friend of ours, Stick from Woodward Sports.
Yeah, good guy. Yeah.
This is like the middle of September, and you're looking at the schedule and you're like, okay, who are the Lions going to lose to the rest of the way? Yeah. Like, seriously, after the Tampa game, maybe Buffalo, but that's going to be about it. And the one thing that I said to him is I said, okay, it's the National Football League. chances are they're going to end up losing another game. It might be like the Bears last year.
That's okay.
And all it was the Bills. It's crazy,
Well, yeah, absolutely. It's bound to have. Look, you mentioned Baltimore beating Detroit and beating them with ease last year. I forget exactly when that was. Week whatever. Okay, week 6, 7. That same Baltimore team, I believe, lost to the Colts. Okay, and they lost to Cleveland. What would concern you more? Losing to those two teams, or if you're a Ravens fan, or if you're a Lions fan, getting blown out by the team that's leading that division.
Right.
I don't know. That's up to the individual, right? All
Yeah.
I know is this is what happens in the National Football League, and this is why they love the parody, or what they assume to be parody, of what's going on in this league. It's bound to happen.
Sell hope. Our mutual friend, the late Tom Kowalski, nailed it about 15 years ago. He said the NFL sells hope, and he's 1,000%. That's just massive amounts of hope. Adding the extra playoff team to keep a whole bunch of teams excited and into it one more week. Are you kidding me?
Wise man, very very wise man. That's why baseball does it. That's why baseball added it. Everybody sees copycat. People talk about copycat leagues. How about copycat sports in general?
Yeah.
You don't think baseball recognized that the NFL sold hope and gave people? That's a big reason why I think they went to the extended format with what they got going on in the postseason.
Jerry asked a good question I want to get to in a second, but first let me tell you about Lindsey Broadwell. When it comes time to getting yourself a house, you're buying, you're selling, oftentimes both, you need to contact the right agent. Who should you contact? That lady right there. Lindsey Broadwell. Your house is probably the biggest investment you'll ever make, and that's why you need a pro. Lindsey grew up on the mean streets of Northville and has expanded her team all over Southeast Michigan. She's an expert in all facets of the business. So when it's time to move, our friend Lindsey and her team will make sure that you get the most out of your house and everything goes smoothly when finding your new home. Buyer, seller, first-time buyer, doesn't matter. Make sure you contact Lindsey. BroadwellHomes.com. She'll help you with everything from start to close. Licensed realtor at Real Broker LLC. Start your search today at BroadwellHomes.com. Interesting question, and I don't know the answer definitively to the question that Jerry asked. Okay, but I think the San Francisco game kind of gives us the tell. Jerry said if Minnesota and Green Bay hadn't forced it, would the Lions kept their foot on the gas like they did? 15-2 could have been 13-4 without those must wins. I can't say this definitively, Shep, because I don't know. My guess is yes. And I use the San Francisco game as an example. I mean, that game didn't mean anything. Well, you guys know that, right? It really didn't.
It would have meant something. This is where you and I disagree. I think every game, A, means something, and B, it would have meant something if Detroit had tied Minnesota at the end. So when people say it didn't mean anything, it sure as hell did. I know the chances are very slim because it doesn't happen hardly at all. But let's just say, for sake of argument, they tied that last game. That win over San Francisco did matter. So I think it does. The other thing is, and you're not saying this, but I think people did, and I fielded this throughout the week. I kept saying, all these people who say, I would rest my starters, you cannot rest your starters. It's impossible. Okay? It's impossible. You have 48 guys who dress on Sunday. You have 11 on the offense, 11 on the defense, 22, right? Let's say you're too deep. Okay? That would give you 44. That's not how it works because a lot of those starters are still playing on special teams. Every team has it. You can't do it. Now, you can rest certain guys, but then I say, how do you feel if you're Taylor Decker and you say, yeah, I want the day off? Kevin Zeitler, Graham Glasgow, Penny Sewell, right? Frank Ragnow, all those guys are going to say, oh, but we're supposed to play? That's not how it works, man. Football, it's not as easy as just saying, we're going to do this, and it doesn't matter to us. I think those guys want to play. I think it's important. I heard a player say not too long ago, it was important for me to practice. It's important for me to play because I need those reps. That's me. I think that game meant something, and I think you're right. I think they would have played. Now, would they have played the entire game? That's a different story. But I think they would have gone for it, just like you were talking about, too.
This isn't like the Red Wings back in the day, sending Igor Larionov and then later Nick Lidstrom for the vacation down in Florida. And trust me, I know for a fact one of them went kicking and screaming. He wanted to be with the guys. He was like, yeah, I get it. We might have a 3-month run and everything, but I wish I was. No, at your age, your importance is what we hope to be a 3-month run. So he really needs you to just go take a vacation, take the family. It's on us, et cetera, et cetera. I don't think it's in their DNA, Shep. I really don't. I don't think it's in Dan Campbell's DNA, and I don't think it's the guys on that team's DNA. Now, to Jerry's point, there's a difference between taking your foot completely off the gas and easing off the pedal. It's almost like when I'm driving to Traverse City, right? And I look down at my speedometer and I'm like, holy shit, I'm going 90 miles an hour. So it's not like I took my foot.
Well, that's your driver. It's not you. The driver.
Yeah, same thing. I got my little wheel in the back seat. I'm playing like I'm my wife, doing the back driving.
Right, exactly right.
But, so I'm going to back off. I may not do 90, but I might drop it down to about 72. And I can see a scenario like that, but Again, I don't know the answer. I'm not sitting here saying I know the answer definitively. I can use a pretty educated guess to say I don't think that's in their DNA, Shep. I really don't.
I agree. Tim says this, not to mention the Lions are easily rusty. The first 2 games and the Bills game proved that. Can you help me with that, Sean? I don't know. What do you mean the first 2 games? In other words, the rust against the Rams that they won in overtime and then the loss to Tampa. They beat the crap out of Tampa. They just went 7 in the red zone. That was their biggest problem. And the Buffalo game, how were they rusty against Buffalo?
It wasn't Ben Johnson.
What's that?
It wasn't Ben Johnson's finest day. I think Ben would be the first one to say that. So some of the red zone play calling and some of the decisions that they made in the red zone Tampa game.
Yeah, I mean, people felt like they threw too much. I reminded people that they threw a lot last year against Tampa in the playoffs and actually beat them. But what does he mean the Buffalo game proved that? How were they rusty against Buffalo? It's not like they were coming off a bye week. How were they rusty?
Yeah, that one I don't know. Tim, if you want to give an explanation. They started too slow in all 3 on offense.
But does that mean I don't want to be too, literal here, but does that mean they're rusty? I don't understand that. Where does the rust come from playing the Buffalo Bills in week 15 when they had played Green Bay the week before? It was 1 week rest. I'm not sure where that comes from. If you want to say they were rusty coming out of the gate, I guess that's possible. Cincinnati could use that excuse too. That's why they lost to New England. But they still did get the win. I assume he's referring to early in the game. I'd have to go back and look at the box score and how they handled the first quarter and so on and so forth.
I know what you're saying. He said they had 10 days off. No, if I'm not mistaken, they went first to Green Bay. And then, it was 10 days off because they did Thanksgiving. Then Green Bay and Detroit both had a week later, and then they had the 10 days off. I get what you're saying. Okay. Yeah.
Because that's right. Because Thanksgiving was Chicago. Then it was Green Bay. That was the 2 Thursdays. Yeah, and then it was Sunday.
Now I get what you're saying.
I think we're reaching there, to be honest with you. Sometimes it's okay to just go, you know what? Buffalo was better that day.
They were.
Okay. I mean, if you think they're rusty by scoring 42 points, 42 points, pretty damn good, right? I wouldn't consider that necessarily rusty unless you're talking about the defense. And Detroit started a little slow. I think they were down 14-0 at the end of first against Buffalo. But I don't know. I just don't buy that. I believe in giving credit to where credit is due, and I think Buffalo deserved it.
Let me tell you about All About Catering. All About Catering LLC is a full-service caterer. Graduations, weddings, bridal showers, corporate events, anything you need catering for, from 25 to 4,000 people. Rick and the gang at All About Catering can and will take care of you. Customer service and satisfaction is their number one goal. So don't sweat your next big event. Just go to allaboutcateringllc.com today to see their menus and all their 5-star reviews, or give them a call, 586-731-1398 to get your event started.
Before we go, because we're going to go watch football,
Yes.
I want to know why you think the Red Wings have won 7 in a row, why Patrick Kane during this stretch is among the league leaders in points, and why the power play is 14 of its last 28 since Todd McClellan took over.
I think there's a few things that come into play, and I would also caution people. I would take a look at the schedule coming up. The schedule is a bear. I said all along, Shep, we were talking about it on What the Puck. Let's wait until February 1st. This is outstanding. It looks like a different team. I think a lot of it has to do with something that we talked about earlier, possessing the puck as opposed to just dumping the puck. I will say this again, as simplistic as it sounds. A lot of times what you need to do is you need to swat a guy on the ass and say, what are you doing? You've been playing this game your whole life.
Yeah.
Go play this game. Really. And that's not all of it. I hope you know that. But I think you combine those things together. And you guys don't, not one person, think that I'm taking away from a 7-game winning streak. Okay. It's the National Hockey League. It's not like all the teams that they beat in that 7-game streak are little sisters of the poor. But there are ebbs and flows in this league. Okay. Especially when you're coming up. There are ebbs and flows in this league. What's really interesting is something that I have felt for a year is that you are going to start to see a seismic shift in the Atlantic Conference. Dare I say we're seeing it now, because you're seeing a Boston team really, really struggle.
Yeah.
You're seeing Ottawa go like this. You're seeing Montreal go like this. You're seeing Detroit go like this. Shep, if you look at the schedule coming up, this is really a brutal stretch the next couple of weeks for the Red Wings. I think by February 1st, we'll have a good gauge of whether or not they are really going to be an absolute sincere playoff contender. And I mean, right now they're right there, obviously.
Yeah,
I mean,
they're 2 points back. Yeah, 2 points
with a
back.
bunch of other teams. Why did the players quiet quit on Lalonde? That's a wonderful question.
That is a good question. Do first of all, you have to ask. Do you think they have? Or do you think they did quit on it?
Yes, I do. I think they did. I did. I think there was a lack of respect there.
I agree. That's exactly what I was going to say.
Yeah.
I think players truly want to be held accountable, and they want to see everybody held accountable.
100%.
I think players. It depends on how the coach goes about it, but I think they want to be pushed. You got to push them the right way. And that's up to you as the head coach, the reason you make the money and are the decision maker on how you do it. But most pros I've ever talked to, whatever sport, they want to be pushed and they understand the need to be pushed. I don't think he pushed very hard.
I think, unfortunately, it's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other too. There were a lot of things that were said about Coach Lalonde, and Shep, I'm sure you heard the same things before he took the job. And I remember one person I talked to, somebody who's been in the league a long time, used the term, quote, a specialty coach. It's not going to work. It will be 2 years. Honest to God, that's what somebody who's been in the league a long time. And I said that to my buddy.
Let me ask you this. That's fascinating to me. If that person knew that, why didn't Steve Yzerman?
I think 2 reasons. Number one, he trusts the guy that he brought into Tampa. Okay. And when you ask John Cooper, okay, is this guy what he says he is? And there's familiarity there. If I'm not mistaken, I think their paths didn't cross when they were in Tampa. But John Cooper, obviously an Yzerman guy, brought in Lalonde. The rest is history. I think word of mouth, as you know, is huge in this business. I think if John Cooper gave him a glowing review, I think that probably hit with Yzerman.
Yeah.
How's that? Is that good?
No, that's really good. What bothers me is that Yzerman should have known what the person feeding you that information.
I know a lot of people felt that way, and I hate talking this way because
that makes it even worse. That makes it even worse. If a lot of people felt that way, and if there's that many red flags, then it should tell the person who's about to hire. Did you vet him properly? That's all. I know,
Shep. I know it. I mean, if you asked around, I know you have a lot of the same friends that I do. If you asked around, I bet you somebody would tell you that privately. Like that was kind of a known. And
they're right.
yeah, he really nice guy. I feel bad. Like Lalonde was a really nice guy. He just Shep. I was talking to Darren McCarty about this. There are some guys that just aren't cut out to be head coaches. There are some guys that aren't. Dave Lewis is one of the nicest human beings in the history of mankind. Dave Lewis was never going to work as a head coach.
No.
Never, ever, ever, especially here in Detroit. After being the good cop and the good cop, bad cop scenario, Scotty Bowman, the buffer, if you will. They were never going to look at him as the man. It wasn't going to work. So whatever. Couple comments. Jason said the Wings are finally playing fucking hockey like they've been playing it their whole lives. David said good coaches adjust schemes to fit players. Lalonde couldn't make changes in games or long term. David, when I knew, and I said it on the show, when I knew he was done was that Saturday night game in Montreal. It was grasping at straws and trying to mix and match lines in strange ways. It was sad to watch. Dave said someone on the internet said that their regular season practices were only 1 hour long. If it's true, that is bad. I heard 45 minutes.
I don't care how long a practice is. I care what they get done in the practice.
What's the content in the practice?
Who says how long is long enough? Like what's the rule that you have to have? I'll give you an example. I was calling a game with Mickey Redmond, Red Wings and Columbus Blue Jackets, and we were talking to John Tortorella, who's the head coach of the Blue Jackets at the time. He didn't believe in morning skates. He thought it was a waste of time. You're wasting all the players' energies. Everybody has different rules and different formations and different ways to go about their business. Obviously, it didn't work for Derek Lalonde. I don't know if it was the 1 hour practices or not. But if you're getting a lot done, why do you have to keep a guy there for an extended period of time? Who says 1 hour of really good work is better than an hour and a half of half-ass work? That's all I know.
All right, Shep, we got to get out of here. I got one more thing to do. I could say goodbye to you if you want to go, or you can listen to me talk about our friends.
I don't mind listening to you talk.
Oh, you're such a nice guy. It's nice to talk about these guys, our friends at Legacy. Did you know that thousands of Metro Detroiters have already called Legacy Partners to get help with their home and auto insurance? If they could do something about these mad, maniac, barking dogs, that would be great. Joe, if you're watching, our friends at Legacy Partners are one of Southeast Michigan's top independent insurance agents, and they provide a full-service, one-stop solution for all of your insurance needs, personal and business, large and small. Legacy has helped our listeners by fixing mistakes other agents have made, asking the right questions to get the right coverage put in place to properly protect you. Yes, help save you some money at the same time. Chances are, if you haven't checked your policies in the last year, you're paying too much, and you could be underinsured. Enter our friends at Legacy Partners. We put them to the test. They did everything they said they would for us. They'll do it for you as well. So what are you waiting for? Give Legacy Partners a chance to help with your home, your cars, life insurance, Medicare enrollment, or your business insurance needs. Call them today, 586-209-4106, or visit legacypartnersins.com to get started with your new quotes. Two things before we leave, Shep. I'm glad you stuck around. Very quickly, who do you think wins tonight?
Minnesota.
Do you really? I'll vomit out my nostrils.
Who's the better team? I think they're the better team.
So do I, but I think that their quarterback is like a disaster. I'm not going to lie, and I think he may have been.
I trust Stafford more. You're right.
And very quickly, Shep. Very quickly. What is all this bitching about the college football playoff? Haven't we clamored for years to settle it on the field? Now I'm hearing all these people say, it's a conference title, doesn't mean anything anymore. Yes, settle it on the field. Isn't that what every player wants? Isn't that what all fan wants?
Great. Look, you can't have it both ways, okay? If you got to win a conference title, then just make it the Final Four instead of the college football playoff the way it was before. If you want 12, you're going to have teams that didn't win a college conference title, period. Two best teams are left standing, and they're both really good.
That's why I like my friend. See, he's smart. Win. Go do it on the field. Quit telling us how great you are. Go win. Shep, take care. I'll talk to you Thursday.
All right. See you,
Thanks, Todd.
See
you
you, Todd.
Bye. God bless you. Keep up alive.
Shep and Sean, featuring Matt Shepard and Sean Baligian. Executive produced by Sean Baligian and Todd Losey. Theme song, incidental music, and related sound effects are from Still Alive by Anti-Ghost. graphic design support provided by the Unsyndicated Podcast team. Don't forget to like and subscribe on all your favorite channels. While you're there, be sure to rate and review the podcast. Call the Unsyndicated hotline at 248-237-3257.